Hello, my friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family. Welcome once again, guys.
Going to be really interesting today. We got some news. I know a lot of people in the chat room have been talking about the CDC and what they said today.
Yeah, and there's more than that. I mean, as you keep going down this rabbit hole, you keep finding new things. So, I mean, there's so much we got right here. We could probably break it into three lives, yeah, honestly, and tear it apart more in depth. But we could keep coming back and looking at these things a little bit deeper as we go. Obviously, there's a lot to take away from everything we're finding out. Honestly, I'm feeling. Ooh, that was interesting. What was that? So that was a glitch. Everything just went and flashed on and off. There's been some shakes here, so I think they're bombing again over on the range. Okay, that's weird. I don't doubt that they are. I think we're going to see a lot of things like Cindy was getting in her meditation. Power being out is what she was seeing today.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a panic situation, but everybody had to go to a certain a place where you can charge your phone. I mean, a power bank, and basically everybody had to wait in line to get certain things charged. But there didn't feel like any panic. It just felt like that's the way life is.
We might come back and go live again tonight around 6 or 7 PST, so 9 or 10 EST. We got to do some transplanting today. We got little seedlings that need to be spread out. Doing well, Greg. Actually, I feel great. I physically feel great. Like I guess about 2 weeks ago, I got the grandkids cold, and that was the first cold I've had in about 15 years. First time I had a sniffle in like 15 years. But that shows us where we're at now. We really do have to strengthen ourselves. But I feel actually really awesome today. I feel very, very strong. It's interesting. I think it's part of it's given my whole system a time to recoup. I really like what we've been doing with, we're just having one meal, and typically we have one meal somewhere around five-ish our time, 5 or 6 our time, and that's it. And I think that it's a case like we've been talking about forever. In this world, we need to be detoxing all the time. We also need to let our body rest and purge and get rid of crap, Thank you, brother. Dr. Enoch Metatron.
Billion galactic thanks, Mike and Cindy. Great broadcasting at Evolutionary Energy Arts. Thank you so much.
Sylvia's feeling okay. Lack of sleep is adding up. Yeah, I did sleep okay recently, and I haven't felt as much of that dark side energies trying to disturb things. Hi, Susan. Hope things are well over in San Francisco. Hello, Casual Preparedness over in Alabama. Nuclear quantum lasers. Pew, pew, pew. Crispy in the house. Oh, that's cool, Chris. Grazing your beard or going back to brown. We could do it. We could roll it back. Mm-hmm. And, all right, well, where to start? There is so much to start. Let's start with C here. All right, let me just throw this out again. There's a lot of people that knew about this before it happened. There's a lot of people that knew about this before it happened. I brought this guy up once before, Emir Yildiz from Turkey, right? This post, June 11th, 2019, says the USA sent a plane load of biological weapons to China. Epidemics may begin in China soon. And then he says they should not forget that if there's a Turk on Earth, there is hope. That's a big statement right there. I mean, who is this guy? And let me bring him up again as we jump all over here. So this is from February 24th, yesterday. He says the Pentagon made a very dangerous nuclear experiment. Even Trump doesn't know about this try since they are deciphered. What will they lie to Trump? How and in what way will they announce this dangerous trial to the world public? So, it's interesting. I should actually follow this guy. I don't know why I didn't. But, he came out again with this, and this was June 11th, 2019. So, what do you make of that?
Thank you, Miss Susan. We appreciate it a lot. And as far as what I make of that is, you're right. A lot of people knew about this. There's seeds that we could be looking for now, and you found one of them. I bet you there's a lot more breadcrumbs that we can find to actually find the truth, maybe some truth to this.
People knew what was going on. A lot of people knew, and this is not something small. This is something very big. Very big, because people knew that there was a major play about to happen, a major play about to happen. And so, some people felt like they had to get it out there. They just had to. Now, you guys saw Event 201. We talked about that. And then there's so much stuff. This has been planned for a long time. This is out of IntelliHub. And here you see Rockefeller plan details government takeover through pandemic martial law. Economically depressed world in which individuals and communities develop localized makeshift solutions to a growing set of problems. And so back in May of 2010, there was a paper published that reveals a planned scenario in which governments around the world would be able to more easily take over society and institute a total and complete Orwellian police state by locking down the remaining few humans that survive a contrived pandemic outbreak. And whether it's contrived, whether it's manufactured, either way, I do believe truly there are a lot of people passing on and leaving this plane of existence. What the how exactly, whether it's something that has been seeded in the sky and is triggered by frequencies, perhaps that's a big part of it. It's just interesting, and we don't know. But the bottom line is people are definitely passing on, no doubt about that. And we are facing probably the biggest lockdown we've ever seen, that's for sure. So this report, titled Scenarios for Future of Technology and International Development, has a stated goal of creating a world of tighter top-down government control and more authoritarian leadership with limited innovation and growing citizen pushback. In a world in which highly coordinated and successful strategies emerge for addressing both urgent and entrenched worldwide issues, an economically unstable and shock-prone world in which governments weaken, criminals thrive, it goes on and on. So basically, this is the PDF for you guys that want to dig into it, 54 pages. Now, this is the Rockefeller Foundation, and usually when we start to talk about the powers that be, we start with the Red Shields, and then number 2, we go to the Rockefellers. Those are 2 of the major families that we know are these power brokers who feel they've been placed there from God or gods on high because of their bloodlines and all. So, again, this is another one. So we had the, Event 201. There was that gentleman that came out in 2010, made the video in 2010s talking about how these people in the secret societies, some Freemasons, were talking about China getting a cold and laughing. There's been more than that. Then you have this, the Turkish gentleman that we're talking about, right here. And let's see if we look at his bio. I'm going to look more into him as well and see, who is this guy? Because he obviously knew something back on June 11th. He said the U.S. sent a plane load of biological weapons to China. Epidemics may begin in China soon. That's a big statement. And, you know, 7 months later, he's right. And, you know, it's probably started about 5 or 6 months after he talked about this. So, yeah, interesting.
Yeah, what I'm seeing here is like this multi-layered plan here, and they've had plenty of time to do it. It's like a really horrible sandwich. It's like one side you have frequencies, then in the middle you have illness, then the other side you have the food, and if you put all these together, boom, you get really super sick and a weakened immune system on top of that. And it just goes to show that they have been planning this for a long time. And it is really important that we boost our immune systems right now. The food that we eat is really critical. Exercise, I know Michael's really good. He can go all day with only eating one meal. He's super good about that. But I just tried it, like today's the second day I was going to try to do it, but I got too dizzy. So I had to eat some nuts and some raisins. But if you can, great. I think it's much better for you. But if you can't, don't make yourself sick because I'm like dizzy and I don't feel too good. But yeah, but I do think that's something that we all should be working toward is intermittent fasting as best as we can. But do listen to your body if you're going to do that.
Oh wow, what did we miss there?
Oh, how did we miss that? There's Susan.
Tu sucia conciencia.
Oh,
Thank you so much for your super chat, and Susan, thank you as well. Thank you guys for being such supporters, and without you guys, we wouldn't either able to be doing this or we wouldn't be having the one meal. Right. So we appreciate you guys so much. Thank you. Honestly, I really feel, I gotta say, I feel like amazing today. I really do. I feel like, what it is, well, we're going to talk about it. There's more and more people coming out and saying that, there's no way we could almost avoid being exposed to it, so we have to get stronger. We just have to say, no, I'm not going out that way, right. And have that in our mindset. That was interesting. So, you guys, we've seen these Denver airport murals, and to me, I think that they are talking about what they envision coming, as we see here oh God, it's so Nazi-ish, the gun and the blade and the kids suffering.
Thank you so much. I hope I don't butcher your name. Hilda Matheson. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and namaste. We so appreciate you guys. We have to fight back in every way we can with our intent. Yeah. And again, we're not consenting here to any of this. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. So we see these evil people, and evil in the sense that they don't care about humanity, they don't care about the animals, they don't care about any of the life on the planet. They just look at this as a resource, and I don't think there could be any indigenous species here that would view life on this planet in such a trivial manner, to put it that way. So, here you have a Rockefeller plan that we were talking about. I think the Denver murals are paintings of showing this horrible future, creepy apocalyptic paintings. They always want to see the death and destruction. They want us to lower our vibration. We recognize that. We really do, recognize that. And yet there's people that have, come out like this gentleman here, and he called it before it happens. How did he know? I don't know. But we'll dig more into him as well. So, only 3 U.S. states can actually even test for this EV. So it says a public lab group, only California, Nebraska, and Illinois. They're the only ones that have currently tested at all. And at the same time, more and more of you guys are saying to me, I'm in the medical field, and I just want to let you know we're under gag order. So I'm hearing that in emails from more and more of you guys. Under gag order to keep it quiet. And you got to say why. Because if they were out there telling us, how potentially dangerous this is, and, going back to that Rockefeller scenario, one of the countries that did the best in that Rockefeller scenario was China, because they locked everything down with an iron fist, and that's what they want. They've always wanted that. And I don't know how to say that, but I appreciate your support. Thank you, my friend, so much for your super chat.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
They always want the Chinese system for everybody, and they want, really, the Chinese system is only one step to the system that they want. And they want us in a complete authoritarian, total dictatorship where we don't even have the right to say, I don't want that, stuck in my body. I don't want to be jabbed with that, and I don't even know what you're putting in. And that's part of this as well. Yeah, our laws are all backwards. It's just like, what was that statement you're always talking about? You're always saying,
well, how the hospitals make you sick, and everything is upside down, and law corrupts, and the court systems are it's just terrible. We have a completely upside down system. Teachers destroy education. It's awful, the system that we live in today. And and then other people are actually raising our children in the public school systems, because many of us have to go out and work these jobs, and our kids have to go somewhere. So they've totally destroyed our family.
And Susan says, this is the same team that made the king, pope, and rewrote the Bible and perverted the word of God. They wrote Revelation. Yeah, because it's their plans. Their timing appears to be aligned with Nibiru. My money's on humanity. Exactly. If you look at it, and it might be time to revisit this too. There's a couple things to revisit. I mean, Behold a Pale Horse, William Cooper. Read that if you guys haven't. There's PDFs for it. Skim through it. This guy was out there, and he knew about 911. He basically came out and warned everybody of 911 in August, and then in October, he was dead because they went to knock on his door for tax evasion, and somehow, they said he came out with a gun, and so they shot him dead. And that's it's right there. It's right there. And then also, William Bramley wrote a great book, The Gods of Eden. And he talks about, in one section, and it's going to sound crazy to some of you guys, the spraying that we see in the skies going on in the Middle Ages. So, and also he talks about what he calls the controllers. And the controller religion is a religion that takes power away from humanity and puts it in the hands of the gods. So be careful about giving your power away. Be careful about giving your will away. And things are written in the manner so that you hand your power to them. You hand your authority to them. And thus they could do whatever they want to you because you've given them your power. And you don't even recognize that this is the case. And coming out of a Catholic background, I recognize it pretty well and did before. But that is the case. So we see only 3 states are testing. And then this is a video from the Guardian. And I just wanted to give you guys the link because you can see this is Italy, guys. This is Italy, and this is this gentleman. And so Italy looks like China now. Now they haven't they haven't welded doors shut yet or barred people in that manner. But you know what? The streets are completely bare. They're bare. And so what we see over there, we're going to see over here. It's just a matter of time, guys. So we have to, prep as much as we can. Mm-hmm. And Joseph Kelly says, sorry to tell you this, or a solid 2 more days to get what you want. like I shared, we ordered like another 30 pounds of rice while we can. And actually, when I get done with this, I'm just going to double check the beans and probably order a few more 25-pound bags just in case. And maybe a few, double check my spices as well, So, yeah, it's definitely coming. We're going to be on lockdown. I don't think there's any doubt that we're going to be on lockdown, at least in certain areas. So those especially that are in the cities, you especially, I think, need to really stock up because, people out in the country, they have it easier as far as being able to grow their own food. You can do it in your apartments. Dave in the UK has done a great job. And if you're listening, brother, I know he was taking a few days off just to do more growing. I'm going to have him send me some more videos so we could do just a whole thing just showing what he's doing, because he's in his outdoor space is tiny, but he makes such good use of it. It's amazing.
Susan Donahue, I'll remember that, and we will send your son energy. Absolutely. No problem. No problem at all. And Nicole, I think she asked what my feel for this is. And I mean, timelines can change, things can change, but my feel, my gut right now is it's not going to be a huge panicky thing, but it is going to be a thing. So we do need to prepare as best we can. And just spiritually prepare too, because I believe that there's things coming that the United States, we're just not used to, you guys. We're a little bit spoiled over here. And I hate to say that about us, but it's true. Look at some of the other countries. These folks, they're lucky if they have shoes. If there's a rusted out car in somebody's front yard over there in Uzbekistan, you're considered rich. And we're just not used to seeing what could be coming around the corner.
So Truth and Freedom's in Sarasota. I thought we were going to be in Sarasota now just visiting with friends, but some reason I was dragging my feet and couldn't get my butt going. And then this is why, because then this whole thing broke out, and it would have made things more complicated for sure if we were on the road crossing the country during all this. But yeah, this is real. Let's just jump over a little bit over here. So former CDC director, a CV pandemic is inevitable. Okay. And now what, right? And so CV-19 will become a pandemic, even if they don't use the words. And Raven was doing some digging, and do you want to tell them what he found out about why they're not calling it a pandemic?
Yeah, I'll just be brief about it. And because basically what it sounded like to me is there was kind of a bet placed back in 2018 that they wouldn't use that certain vocabulary word for like 2 years. And if they did, they were going to lose. Let me see if I can find how much.
Some sort of funding.
It was like 500 million plus interest.
And some sort of funding.
If
so
they declared a pandemic.
Yeah, so interesting how we were talking about yesterday. They were saying, well, they don't declare pandemics anymore.
Right.
Really? When did that happen?
Well, they have to find a new vocabulary word.
Yeah. So, this is out of CNN, and many people are speaking up and saying this is just dangerous. Trump claims coronavirus is going to go away despite mounting concerns. He made several tweets, one of which he said, I think that's a problem that's going to go away, Trump said during a trip to India, expressing confidence that the epidemic will not seriously harm the global economy. Doesn't look like that right now. It's one thing to be optimistic, that's wonderful. He said, we're watching it very carefully. We're fortunate so far, and we think it's going to remain that way. And this is interesting because, what he is saying is kind of very, very against what the CDC is saying. CDC expects community spread of CV virus, as top official warns disruptions could be severe. So, Nancy Messenger, director of the CDC's National Center for Immunization and Respiratory Diseases, told reporters, as we've seen from recent countries with community spread, when it has hit those countries, it has moved quite rapidly. We want to make sure the American public is prepared. As more and more countries experience community spread, successful containment at our borders becomes harder and harder. She says there's been 14 cases, when she's made a statement, diagnosed in the U.S., all in people who recently traveled to China or in their close contact, and there are 39 U.S. residents have been infected in other parts of the world before being repatriated and quarantined. But CDC officials said the country could soon see more cases as the virus starts to spread through communities in areas outside China, including Iran, South Korea, and Italy. So the CDC urged American businesses and families to start preparing for the possibility of a bigger outbreak. Messenger said that parents should ask their children's schools about plans for closures. Businesses should consider whether they can offer telecommuting options to their employees, while hospitals might need to look into expanding telehealth services as well. Disruption to everyday life might be severe, she said, adding that she talked to her children about the issue Tuesday morning. While I don't think they were at risk right now, we as a family ought to keep preparing for significant disruptions to our lives. So the CDC's message seems to be at odds with the position of the WHO, which reiterated Tuesday that countries could stop transmission change if they acted swiftly and aggressively, and also at odds with the Trump regime. So, it's pretty interesting to see this. She also said CDC is evaluating data on measures that could be used to stem the spread of the virus, including school closures, other social distancing strategies, voluntary home quarantines, and surface cleaning methods. The CDC is using data from past flu outbreaks to study those strategies, but will tailor its recommendations for the new virus. And she said the CDC is also in conversation about whether to change the case definition that triggers a sick patient to be tested for the virus. Currently, health officials recommend testing only for people who have respiratory symptoms and recently traveled to China, or those who have been in close contact with someone who is infected. But as the community spread picks up in other countries, that definition could change. So, and then here the CDC outlines what closing schools, businesses would look like in a pandemic. So, they're talking about that, taking to another level and kind of waking up the American public to what's probably coming. They're starting to gently prep us, even though President Trump is taking an extremely optimistic stance, and must not be looking at what's happening in Iran and Italy, or he knows something we don't know, perhaps, as well. I'm just throwing that out there. And the Senate is to receive classified coronavirus briefing today as Trump administration to ask for emergency funding. And this was a big, let me see, what was the number if they show it? I heard it quoted as a very large number. So we see all senators will be briefed Tuesday in a classified setting on the CV. They will hear from officials from a variety of agencies, including the HHS, DHS, CDC, NIH, and state. Comes as administration preps emergency fund requests to deal with the outbreak. And here we see, President Trump, the CV is very much under control in the USA. We're in contact with everyone and all relevant countries. CDC and World Health have been working hard and very smart. Stock market's starting to look very good to him. He sees it as a buying opportunity because it's down. So we'll see. And the Department of Health and Human Services already tapped into Emergency Infectious Disease Rapid Response Fund, seeking to transfer more than $130 million from other HHS accounts to combat the virus, but is pressing for more. One of the things that was brought up, and I don't think I have it in here, maybe I do. I think it was Dana Grayson talking about it, The part that, President Trump eliminated a position that would have overseen all this. Meanwhile, the military budget ballooned, completely ballooned to the highest levels we've ever had. And then you also cut the budget, as far as, with these type of things, pandemic related, infectious disease related, that budget was cut. Yet the military budget, was amped up like we have never seen before.
Right. So instead of feeding people and taking care of people, they make sure the military budget is nice and super healthy, because I guess if they were going to do a lockdown, they would need plenty of people to keep an eye on us, which is just terrible, and I think right now, like, I'm watching where this information is coming from, and it's strange to have Trump at odds with the CDC and everybody else. Trump asked for 2. Yeah.
That's the number I saw. So yeah, that's the number I had seen. But go ahead.
Yeah, the information we have coming out, we still have to be suspect to. I know somebody was really nice and sent an email with a list of cleaners that wiped out or killed the CV. And I told Michael, I'm like, oh, they're so nice. They create this thing and then they make sure we have cleaners to kill it. And he says, yeah, but now do you trust those cleaners because they made it? I don't know, you guys. Just keep a real high vibe of gratitude and keep getting healthier. That's what we need to do, and definitely use these cleaners, because that's, as far as I know, that's all we got that's going to work right now. Me personally, I like using peroxide. Normally, no, I don't use bleach, but if I don't have the Lysol, I'm going to use the bleach to wipe things down. And I also have my colloidal silver in a spray bottle, so I will spray all their surfaces with that. I take measures here. That's what I do.
Yeah, so there's so much going on with all this that we're seeing here. And here we see, Brian Schatz. So U.S. Senator from Hawaii, the coronavirus is not contained. It will not fade in the spring. Trump cut the CDC by 9%. Trump eliminated the position at the global health security teams at the NSC and DHS. They don't know what they're doing. They're fixated on politics and the stock market. And looking at the numbers, it went over 80,000. China has been showing very small increases, but then again, they had told us, the day before the increases were tiny, that they were going to not count them the same way they did before, or they did at that one period of time. When we had this huge spurt, this is because they were including people that they assumed had it, but they didn't necessarily test. But then again, there's not enough test kits, and it's just a huge cover-up. That's part of the bottom line. So officially, they're showing 977 in South Korea, 691 others, 283 in Italy, 170 in Japan. They're showing 95 in Iran. But Iran said they're not going to give us their full numbers either. And the numbers in Iran are probably, we'll go over that. They're way higher than that, as is the numbers in many other places. Singapore 90, Hong Kong 84, US 53, Thailand 37, Taiwan 31, Australia 22, Malaysia 22. And then Germany 16, Vietnam 16, UAE 13, UK 13, France 12, Canada 11, Macau 10. And the other thing that we're going to start to talk about was this. So this is slightly different. It looks like the Deagle numbers are a hair off, at least on this page, because they're a little more detailed. Now, people don't know exactly who this is. We really don't. I think that those that have studied this enough tend to think that this is a front for the CIA. And again, it apparently is the case that they have to let us know what is going on in this bizarre matrix of a world that we live in. So this is a forecast. Deagle is all about military expenditures. Everything military. I've talked about this. I've done like 4 videos on nothing but this topic. And I actually made a spreadsheet at one point that took me like a whole day to do, and put each country into a different, category. And it was clear to me that, this was showing a preemptive, full-out, nuclear attack on NATO and the U.S. would be my guess. Limited, but significant, and that's the conclusion I came to. Everybody's free to come to their own conclusions. Now, Deagle, as you see, it's all about military hardware. This is what they roll out. They talk about agreements, like China developing a particular aircraft tanker, Airbus ready to launch first 2 Pleiades. That's interesting. NEO satellites by mid-2020. Russia developing hypersonic air-to-surface missiles. And I think that's what we're going to see used potentially, unfortunately. I think that's part of the elite's plan. So Deagle forecasts different things, growth. And if we look at these countries right here, you see China. There's 2 dates. So you have 2017, and let's see if I go over here and give you the country list, which is down at the bottom, and 2025. And it's such a interesting, right? There are 209 countries listed below. View the 2025 forecast. And when they were confronted with this, because when you look at the United States of America, in 2017, population 327 million, their forecast for 2025 is 100 million people. So when they were asked about this, back, I think it was in 2017 or 2018, they said, well, it'd be due to economic conditions. They expect a gigantic crash to happen, and people will leave the U.S. But when you add all the numbers together, which I did, it shows there's about 550 million less people in the world than there in 2025 than there is in 2017. So 550 million people are gone from the world as far as their forecast. So when we look at this, here you see that top number in red. That's China's population. Now, here they're showing it's going to go down. And, if we look at that, we're looking at about 22 million people less. So that's interesting because originally, in the other numbers, it just showed it flat. India's population is going to go up, and it looks relatively significant there. Now, Russia's population is going to go down slightly. Japan's population is going to go down by about 23 million. As you can see, there's a difference, 23 million. Brazil's goes up about 3 million. The United States population, now they're forecasting it to sit at 99,553,100 people in 2025. And they're showing us currently at 326,620,000. That's a lot of people to not be there anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's unimaginable to not be there anymore. Sometimes I think that they put these things out it keeps them off the karmic wheel, because if they tell us what's going on, then, they're not held at fault because they're disclosing everything. So I think it's some sick part of the game that they play when they tell us these things in movies and in websites like this. And I also wonder if, this isn't a way that they cast this out there and then somehow we end up manifesting this, or if, I don't know, there just seems to be so many twisted things going on here. I'm thinking about a lot of different things, as far as religion, being under a spell, the God spell. People can't seem to break out of that once they're in it, and if they try, and they just can't bear to break their own dogma. I think there's a lot of dark magic going on here, really. And I think keeping a high vibration is going to keep a lot of people safe.
Yeah. So we need to be aware of all this. It's just interesting to look at these numbers. Here you see Indonesia gained 7 million people, so they go up. Interesting, too. There was an article today talking about a lot of Chinese manufacturing jumping to Indonesia as well. I forget where I got that article from. Here you see Mexico increases slightly. Perhaps it's people leaving the U.S., and actually Central America and South America gain people. Now, if you look at these countries, right here, you see Italy drops like 19 million people. France drops 28 million people. That's huge. Canada loses 9 million people, about a third. South Korea, big loss there as well. It goes from 51 million to 37 million. You see the Netherlands drops population. Pakistan gains population. Pakistan gains a lot, actually. It gains about 14 million people. I almost wonder if, what's up with that. That's kind of weird. Iran loses a little bit of population there. I guess that looks like maybe around, what is that, like 45,000 people, something like that. Thailand loses population. Turkey loses 9 million. That's big. Egypt gains about 8 million people. Malaysia gains like 2 million. Nigeria loses 3 million. Philippines gain like 13 million people. Germany, look at the loss on Germany. Germany goes from 80 million people population to 28 million. That's massive. Yeah, massive drop. And did we cover the UK? Because the UK has a huge drop too. So Germany is massive. Spain, big losses, almost cut in half, 48 million to 27 million. Saudi Arabia loses about 3 million people as well. You see Colombia gaining almost a couple million. Argentina loses 3 million. So it has to do with political alliances, I would think, and war as well. Taiwan loses like 5 million people. Australia loses 8 million. They go from 23 million to 15 million. Poland loses 5 million. And we see the trends continue. Bangladesh, gains 19 million. That's not earth change related, because Bangladesh is so prone to flooding and all sorts of earth changes there as well. And we look at Romania losing 4 million. Iraq loses 6 million. Belgium loses 3 million. South Africa loses 9 million people. Venezuela loses 2 million, and you got to wonder about that too, right? Finland loses population there. Peru gains. Austria loses. Sweden loses. Almost all the European nations lose. Kazakhstan loses people. Switzerland does as well. There's the UK, all the way down at 47. The UK goes from 65 million people to 14 million people. 65 million people to 14 million people. So what do you guys think of that?
That's pretty ridiculous. I mean, that's a lot. And this could be the event that is triggering all these numbers to domino and come into play. And Pew was saying about, the prison populations and how, if it were to get released in there, they're like an incubator for this to spread. And, I'm sure many of us have loved ones that might be in prison, and they're not going to get the medical care they need. I mean, even if someone deserved to be there, I don't think they deserve to be exposed to this. But then you can't let them out either, because I'm sure they're there for some reason or another. So, I mean, it's just a really, really messed up situation all the way around. And right now, I'm staying grateful. We still have time to prepare, you guys.
So somebody said, can you look at World War II casualties and, what they lost? And, Russia lost the most. Well, was the Soviet Union. You see, they lost 13% of the population. So they lost 20 million people. China lost 15 million people, or 2.9% of the population. Germany lost 6.9 million, 8.3% of the population. Poland lost 5.9 million. That was almost 17% of the population. So what Deagle is forecasting is something worse than World War II. When you look at that, it's worse than World War II. This is supposed to be for 2025. So I mean, it's around the corner. What do they know? Who are they? I mean, first off, who are they? And people that have done real in-depth investigations, myself, included. I wouldn't say that my conclusions is it's CIA, but others that have done their due diligence, you can't really find out who they are. That's the problem. This has been so put up as to cover all the traces of it, but they still go on. And so it does feel like it's some sort of operation of sorts. So, if we look at it, what we're seeing here, Soviet Union lost 20 million people. And if we're looking at, what Deagle is talking about, the UK, for instance, is going to lose 51 million. That's crazy. That's blows it away. And if you look at the U.S., the U.S. is losing 227 million people. What could possibly do that? How could this site, which does really watch, everything going on military-wise, how could they come up with those type of numbers? It would be hard to think of a scenario that you'd have those type of people moving out of a country for economic reasons. So, 2/3 of the U.S. is going to leave the country because the economy is going to collapse because of what we're seeing now. I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's a lot of reasons. And somehow something weird tells me that this could be like dark magic, like witchcraft, because it's a forecast. I don't know. I really hope that we're not. I don't think, it gets thrown out there. People really are getting sick and people really are dying. So I have a hard time saying that it's a psyop or it's just a false flag, because these things are happening. In a lot of ways, I don't know what to think about it, because there's so many people. It's ridiculous the amount of people, and a virus could knock out those numbers, as fast as they spread.
So it's interesting, China will catch a cold, and then we have all this stuff with the apparent theft from the Canadian lab, which I think looks like a setup to me. It looks too convenient. Then we had that Turkish gentleman saying that the U.S. brought a whole bunch of, nasty stuff over to China and look for epidemics starting in China. That was back in June 11th, before it all happened. This is, it's definitely part of a plan. We know that, and oops, just take a look at Italy here. So we see over in Italy, the toll rises to 11 dead and 323 infections. Italy's getting hit hard, and we did see Italy losing a lot of people. Italy loses 19 million according to Deagle. Although, is it a combination of things? And Gary had said that CIA. Yeah, I mean, I guess if I had to pick who it is, it's something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things going on, and I think maybe tonight, if we get to go back on, we had our really good friend Rosemary put together like a quick quarantine kit, things that you would want to have if you're home quarantined. Just like a small duffel bag, maybe 10 things she put together, and she took a picture and sent it. So I think that would be kind of fun to cover that if we go back on later today, because like yesterday we went early, and you know what? I missed these guys. I wanted to go back on yesterday and do this again. So, yeah.
So this is out of As News Source. As you see, 57 cases in the U.S. Algeria announces its first case, and it happens to be an Italian tourist. U.S. sanctions 13 individuals and entities from Russia, China, Iraq, Iran, Turkey, and Syria for supporting Iran's missile program.
That's just absolutely crazy, and then the plot thickens. Like every day, something newer and weirder comes out. Like we got that information as far as why they aren't using the P word on this. And then yesterday, Michael says, they're not using that word pandemic. And then we find out there's a money trail as to why they're not using that word. So they just simply have to find a new vocabulary word, really.
And there's triage tents set up in Sicilia for patients that exhibit flu-like symptoms. Here, don't forget too, FEMA is going to do a mass casualty drill, and we talked about it once before. And this is going to be on March 3rd in Nebraska, where they're bringing so many people in, Ravenna, Nebraska. So it's a small community. You got top people from the agencies that are going to be there. Top CDC people, top FEMA people. It's curious, this is all about a hypothetical sickness, eerily like the coronavirus.
Yeah, and I've seen these things, they go live, and it's so uncanny how they'll be holding a drill. Like I do believe they were on that one day back in September. They were actually having a drill, and then it went live, so I think that's another way how they say these things are going to happen.
And the other important component to the Deagle numbers, because Deagle is all about military expenditure, is whose militaries go up in expenses and whose go down. And you see China's increases dramatically. Probably 40% increase. Russia's increases almost doubles as far as their military budget. India's military budget almost doubles, right, going from 2017 to 2025. Then you see Japan's decreases hugely. You see United States, it decreases by, how do you even calculate that? Look at that. 637 billion to 32. That's huge. It's 1/20th what it is. What could possibly happen to make the U.S. have 1/20th its military expenditure, especially with President Trump in office?
Right. So, really, there's just a lot of things that we need to look at, and this is coming around the corner. And I do believe this is the event that's going to possibly cause like a domino effect and have several different things. I do also personally believe that the EMF frequencies are highly involved. I do think they weaken our immune system. I think they break through our energy bodies, and they can actually get in our body and tear our DNA. And while our body is trying to repair all these things, oops, it's sick, it has a bug, it can't quite repair itself correctly. So there's multi-layers to this, and it's really important to spiritually prepare, because if our spirit is good, then like everything else follows. Everything else follows. And that's why I'm hounding on that. Michael and I, we do our mantras, we do our silent meditation. We're getting ready as best we can with what we've got.
I agree, Sandra. We've all been snookered by our governments, most definitely the case. And more ways than one. So, this is Dr. Eric. How bad is the epidemic in Iran if we don't have any testing? Scientists have modeled it, and they estimate 18,300 right now. And remember, when we were looking at GIS, they were showing, I think, like 90-something. I'll bring it back up. So we have 77,660, they're saying, in mainland China. they're showing 95 in Iran, but they're not testing. So from what Dr. Eric is talking about, 18,300, so that's, about a quarter of what we have in China. How could Iran be hit so hard? That's unless something was released. How? It doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. And so this is what he's quoting. And again, this is MedRx IV. So they've done a lot of studies, and they're showing 95% confidence. This is the 18300 right here. But basically anywhere from 3770 to 53,470. That's what would had to have occurred, right? How come Iran got hit so bad? I mean, it's not right next door to China.
Right, I know. I mean, it would make sense if they were close and they did regular business together, but they're not. So it does only make sense that it was released. And but then again, you think they don't have all the tests to do all the testing either. So how do we know? And they're just, I hope they're not just saying, well, the coronavirus is there, lock yourselves down. That would be a terrible thing. That would really suck. But we could look at something like that because the end goal is total control.
And if we look at that tweet from ABC News, it's no longer a question of if, but rather when community spread's going to occur in the U.S., according to the director of the CDC. And right below it, Paco is talking about that book by Dean Koontz. And excuse me, guys, the frog is jumping in my throat here. Mm-hmm. Always happens when it comes time to go live. In around 2020.
Huh? Grab a drink of water. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. In around 2020, a severe pneumonia-like illness will spread throughout the globe, attacking the lungs and the bronchial tubes and resisting all known treatments. Almost more baffling than the illness itself will be the fact that it will suddenly vanish as quickly as it arrived, attack again 10 years later, and then disappear completely. So, then there's that. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I mean, that sounds nice in a sense that, okay, it disappears completely. Yeah. But what's going to happen? Is it going to be that complete medical martial law that never goes away? Right. Is it going to be the medical 9/11 situation that was talked about? And then meanwhile, we find ourselves, shackled, right. Going to work in chain gangs. Yeah.
And, I do think that this other part of the plan is to create a something to prevent this bug from spreading. And I don't even want to say the vocabulary word, but I know you guys know what I'm talking about. I do think that's another part of the end goal is they want to use these things on us and do more testing on us and help control the population. Bill Gates has said that many, many, many times, bringing the population into or bringing the population down, lowering the population through the use of these shots.
Yeah, so right now Latin America looks good, but it's also summer there, and I saw people talking today saying they expect it to balloon when it gets colder there, and perhaps vice versa with us. But if it's a bioweapon, is that necessarily going to be the case? I don't know. And here you go. Just because reported cases seem low, it doesn't mean it's not spreading. As we were talking about, only 3 states can test. And the tests that were sent were flawed. New test kits haven't been shipped, so we don't know,
Yeah, so how do we know when there's no tests, so no one can be accurate? You just have to sort of kind of take a quick guess and hope you're right. And if you're not right, well, you'll wish you would have been.
And here is one of the biggest bottom lines, biggest takeaways. So it could be a catalyst for China to further its surveillance state, the growth of it, but maybe for the entire globe. It could be that which enables Big Brother to take everything to a much higher state. That's the bottom line. And to me, that feels like it's dead on. I think that's what this is really. And there you go. Search that, guys.
Yeah.
That's something else that's here. Yes. Existence Mine. Yeah. Everybody check that out. Mm-hmm. And I have a video of that up on, I think, Brightian, talking about that I did not put up on YouTube. So, okay, so Dirty Skies, I'm taking my kids out of school, homeschool for a month. I wish everybody would kind of do that right now. I think I like homeschooling for one. It's better. Dr. Francis Boyle, we talked about that, and it's just part of the bigger plan here that's underway. So I think that is that's one of the bigger truths right there. It's going to enable Big Brother to expand. Mm-hmm. So Iranian member of parliament's now tested positive as well. That's in addition to the Iranian deputy health minister testing positive earlier. Why is Iran getting hit so bad? Why is it getting hit so bad? And so let's jump over to... where was it over there? No. Okay, well, we see a new case in Germany, and, places that don't have cases are getting cases. Now, here you see a person being monitored in Ohio. And again, they have signs of respiratory illness and they traveled to China or been in close contact with somebody who traveled to China. So there's so many people that have the flu. I mean, there's millions of cases of the flu. This is just showing now, the rush and the run on food and water is happening. And this was in Albania, I believe. It's everywhere. And, the neighboring countries, there's still stock shelves there, but people are stocking up big time. So that's coming here too. So this is off of Hal Turner, survivor of 1918 flu epidemic, which may not be as bad as what this could be. Tells what it was like then. It'll be worse now. This is according to the Hal Turner show. So this was an interview in 2012. And so she was 100 years old then. And this is Mrs. Edna Register Boone. And so this is what people had to deal with. There were very few doctors, hospitals completely full. Locals had to bring meals to those afflicted because they couldn't work or buy food themselves. In each town, locals had to bury the dead in mass graves. They had to dig themselves without a church funeral. And it's scary to think about that. Most definitely.
Yeah, I mean, these things are, we could be looking at them again. We're not exactly sure. So, but one thing that helps me when I'm faced with something that has me extremely fearful is I educate myself on it. I learn as much as I can about it. I spend as much time humanly possible researching, listening, learning. Everything. Learn about it.
And this is Dr. Dina Grayson. So the CV outbreak spread from China to South Korea, now outside Asia. Coronavirus cases are surging in the Middle East and Italy, plus other European nations. This is the literal definition of a global pandemic. So why don't they declare it as such? Because that's what this is. And Algeria reports its first case, and that's why everybody was buying up food. And here you see Pompeo on responses to the coronavirus in China and Iran, saying censorship can have deadly consequences. All nations should tell the truth. Well, then why don't you start telling the truth too? Because there's more than the 50-something cases that we know. Why are the test kits so long in coming? because they're just holding down the numbers. And both of these gentlemen now have it as well. The deputy health minister infected, standing next to him yesterday, next to the industry minister, and both come down with it. And this is in Iran as well. Yeah, is it a coincidence that Iran and China have gotten the hardest hit?
Yeah.
Or is that a ruse? And maybe this, who released it? That's the bottom line.
I think we're getting attacked. We should probably cut it before.
Oh, okay. So we see that they're starting their spamming going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't have to panic, but it is getting long. So there's a couple other things I just want to touch on. We can't stop this. Japan rolls out new harm reduction policy aimed at limiting virus-related deaths. In other words, they've acknowledged that they can't stop the spread, and now it's just going to be about limiting the casualties. And there's zero hedge here. Italian cases soar past 300 as EU stubbornly refuses to close borders. And again, you got to say, is that something else that we're going to look back at and say, well, if they just did that, they really could have contained it. But now it's everywhere. And as we know, total panic, store shelves empty as virus spreads. And it's panic buying all across Italy now. And so food shortages most definitely. And here is a list, and the link is attached to things that should be able to fight this virus. And there's lots of stuff on there. It includes things like Clorox and Purell and different sanitizers, Lysol, hydrogen peroxide, things like that. So there's a list there for you guys as well. And as we were talking about with the finances, here you see investors are finally considering a previously unthinkable scenario. And, this will get more people involved as the collapse happens because of it. And this is out of henrymacau.com. And this is what everybody's thinking about. Many of you guys are thinking this. And so will we be seeing that, and will it be completely mandatory and there's nothing you could say or do about it, because you'll have your choice: get it or go to jail. Interesting. And Chinese business conditions crashed most on record, guys. So we are getting deeper and deeper into this.
We are. And, we can make things better for ourselves, personally, individually. It's all about taking personal responsibility, going within. Don't buy into the fear, but at the same time, be cautious. I do believe that there is a fine line to be walked there, and it's time to walk that line. At least I'm doing the very best I can with what I got.
So guys, I want to thank you guys for all your support. As always, we keep prepping, keep positive, keep your prayers going. Let's make it our prayer that we send out the energy of we do not consent to this, and that anybody who is truly behind this, that they be exposed, completely exposed, so that we could remove them from the positions of power that they are in. May these power structures crumble, because that is the bottom line. This is the death of their era of power that we've been in, death of the Kali Yuga that is going on. And so, all is going to be exposed. After all, apocalypse means the great unveiling. That's when we realize en masse that, hey, we've been played. And so people will wake up and en masse say, no more, we're not going along with this, no more. So, those that we know are complicit, we got to make sure that they're not in power, and vote them out wherever we can, get ourselves out of their matrix, their machine, recognize that, bypass the man, quote unquote, and form our own little communities, helping each other out as best we can. Barter and trade, and getting away from their whole Babylonian money magic situation as much as possible. So thank you guys as always. God bless, stay safe, and namaste.
God bless and namaste.